what your customer's situation is and understanding the totality of it, because there is a problem in there somewhere on why they're in the market, what got them in the market, what their problem is. The second step to understanding that situation is understanding how you benefit that situation, and that includes all the different houses that you have that are on the market, things like that, how they all fit, and then how your solution benefits their problem or their situation. And this is where, and I said this during this lesson, this is where most salespeople stop because they think they have it figured out. And they're like, oh, good, I have the solution. I can benefit them this way. But they don't get to why that's important to your customer. Why is it important to your client that they purchase the house from you? Because if you get to the why, they can't help but buy. So I did go through all the steps on how to do that. We talked about communication and some of the key aspects of how to actually communicate with someone. There's two sides of communication. One is listening, and there's 5 steps to listening: being fully attentive, acknowledging their situation or acknowledging what they're saying, summarizing or rephrasing it, inviting more information, and asking clarifying questions. Those are the 5 steps for communicating. On the other side is awareness and what's going on in your own head throughout the communication process, and how you want to get that out of your head into the communication process. My definition of communication is when 2 or more people combine or come together and they assign or convey meaning to create a shared understanding through a common experience. So it's about coming to a shared understanding, not agreement, not getting your point across or anything like that. It's really just coming so that you and the other person or other people understand one another, and you're doing that through a common experience. It could be on the phone whenever you're talking to them. It could be whenever you're actually showing the house, whatever it is. You have that experience, whatever it is, and you're just there to come to a shared understanding in that. The awareness side of communication, there's 5 steps for that as well. One is your sensory data and recognizing what that is, which leads to your thoughts and expressing your thoughts. I believe this, or I think this because I see this, or I observe this, which leads me to feel this. So it leads from your thoughts into your feelings, which then leads to your wants for yourself, for your client, and for the relationship that you have. For instance, I want to make sure I get you into a great house that fits your budget and that what you're looking for, because then we can go forward and have a great relationship beyond this type thing. Then the last step of that is establishing actions with anticipated outcomes. That's really what communication is, and you'll be able to see that video whenever I get it all uploaded and I start sharing everything. As we come to this section, it's really more about why people buy. And it takes this step, why is it important to them? It takes this step to the next level. Whenever you're going through the communication process, you're talking or meeting with your client, the ultimate goal, like I said, is to get to why is it important that they buy from you. The reason people purchase or the reason people buy anything ultimately is because they want it. That's it. You can break down every purchase you've ever made, and you did it because you wanted that thing. So, who has an iPhone? Everyone has iPhones? Right? Here's the interesting thing with Apple. Apple has, their marketing campaign is not about the product. It's about why you want the product. They have tapped in from the very beginning, and that's why they exploded, even though they were way behind technology-wise, because you had IBM and Microsoft and all that were moving in the computer business. They certainly weren't in the cell phone business. iPhones did not exist. They were in a whole different type of business, and they shifted everything to focus on why. People buy because they want it. That's it. So what they did is they had a marketing campaign that targeted on why people want their product. They don't talk about all the features. They show features, but there's a reason they show it the way they do. Anyone get the new 14 yet?
No, I just got the 13.
Who wants the new 14?
Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, they have Dynamic Island on there now, which is a whole new thing for your home screen that you have a better engagement with certain things. That's what they're targeting. They're not targeting and showing the details of this new feature. They're showing what it does for you. That's why we want something. It's not because of what the product is. We want it because of what it does. So, we're going to do a little role play with each other real quick. It's easy to divide this way and pair up. We're going to go through introductory role play like you're meeting a new client. Right? You do this every day, so it's not hard. This is the good thing. Here is where you can say whatever and mess up and then work through it. Right? I mean, that's just what it is. Because this is the place for you to experiment with some aspects of how you can actually get to why your customer is going to buy. And then we're going to break it all down in a little bit. So as you think through and you're looking at some of those questions, and Kathy, thank you for bringing those up because that opens up, don't think in a box. Your job, whenever you're trying to figure out what their situation is, how you benefit, and why that's important, is to act as an investigator to pull out information. Because people, whenever they come into any type of sales situation, they only reveal what they believe is relevant at the time. They will not reveal anything extra. Even the people that talk a lot, they still only reveal what they believe or what they think in their head is relevant at the time. So you have to dig some of that information out. You have to curate that conversation and sometimes move it in a direction they didn't even think about before. And that's what one of the goals of communication is to help your client see their situation in a different way. And that's what that exhibited. There are, and this is, Brian Tracy has this quote, and I put it on the paper. You want to make sure that your product, and in your case, the houses that you select to show are the right fit or are appropriate for your client's situation at this time. If you don't, and here's why, you want to, I'm going to try and get to a blank page. If you have everything lined up based on the understanding of what is appropriate for my client at this time, then you have a bullseye. You can target it, right? You'll have houses that fit within all of these areas of the target. And you want to focus, and we'll get into this in the next week whenever you are framing the offer and you start doing some stuff. You'll want to focus attention on those that hit the bullseye first and then move out. Because if you do that, you end up saving yourself and your client a lot of time, which is one of the things that we'll talk about today. But Brian Tracy said, make sure that your product or your solution to their situation is appropriate for them at the time. There are two things, and two, it's like a teeter-totter that I have on the paper for you. There are two things in there that you have to manage for your customer or for your client throughout the entire process. And these will be triggered at different times. You'll hear some of them in the conversation. I want to downsize. These are my desires of what I want. Most of the time, you don't talk about the fear. A lot of times that comes up, and you brought it up one time where you talked about in the first session, we want to educate I want to make sure they understand the process. Do you understand where you're at in the process and how this process goes? Because that alleviates fear. That's why that's important. So you have fear and desire. You want fear to go down and desire to go up. That's why you want to work it like a teeter-totter. Fear inhibits buying. Because what happens, and we talked about this, whatever you focus on creates a belief, right? That belief will either trigger fear, which is the feeling. You can also call it anxiety. Or it will trigger anticipation and desire. Fear and anxiety actually prevent movement. You've heard fight or flight, right? That's what's triggered by fear and anxiety. Your client, and you'll see it in a lot of different ways whenever you get into a meeting or whenever you start talking, especially if you're talking about numbers or if you start talking about, even if you're trying to get a listing and you start talking about some of the processes and things like that, fear starts to, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, right? And you feel that go up. That's where you want to start alleviating that and focus on a different aspect of it. Because you want to decrease fear, increase desire, because that is the only way they'll have the freedom to be able to give up what they value so that they can have what you're offering. Because that's what the buying process is. This is the focus. As you're looking at the fear and desire and managing this process, you already have an idea of where you're targeting and what you're trying to help your client focus on throughout these conversations. This is later, typically in the conversation. You want instead of what the product is, features, benefits, you want to focus on what the product does. This is why it's so important to get to the why it's important that they are buying from you, right? Here's what happens, and I see this a lot with salespeople, is they start giving a lot of information about what the product is, what the house is, what it all contains, which is good, it's fine. But if that's the central focus of the conversation, people will get lost in details and then they'll find something that they don't like. And they're like, okay, yeah, this is good, I like that, but this I don't like. But if you focus on what the product does, that's when you can get into, well, do you have to have the pool, or could it be ready, pool ready, or the ability to have a pool, or any other angle that you can come up with on it? Because it's not about what it is, it's about what this is doing for your client. There are 5 motivators, or 5 basic motivations for everything we do. This is in life in general. Let me flip this. Five basic motivations. The first one is drive. The drive is anything that leads to satisfaction. Oops. How can I get satisfied? And this is one of our foundational needs, is to be satisfied. We're going to get into a different aspect of it here in a second. So, here's a good question I love asking salespeople. What got you into this job? What got you into selling? Specifically selling real estate. I don't want to sit on that. Okay. Okay. Freedom of schedule, be your own boss, have unlimited earning potential. What else?
Yeah, unlimited earning potential for me.
Okay. John, what got you into it? I think you went over it a couple weeks ago, but okay. All of us have different needs or things that we want to satisfy us and reason we get into things. The drive, like I said, is what focuses on how we feel satisfied with what we're doing. The second one is desire. Desire focuses on improvement in some way. The reason we want to get better at something is because we realize that we need more so that we can achieve or get and be satisfied with what we desire. I need more. So here's the interesting thing whenever we're talking about sales, especially with your clients. There are certain things that are driving your client to purchase that you need to satisfy. Your job is to uncover what that is. That's where what's the true problem that they're facing in this situation? Why do I want to downsize? What's really going on in this situation that is driving them to do that so that you can satisfy that need? Same with desire. They're trying to improve something. They have some aspect, and downsizing can be an improvement. I mean, I live in a house that's too big for me, and it's a pain to clean, and we've thought about downsizing. I mean, it's maintaining with two people living in a house that we live in. It's 2 stories. Why do we need 2 stories? Because now I got to vacuum stairs, and I have a dog. So there are ways downsizing could be an improvement for people. So whatever that is, what are they desiring to improve? The third one is need. What do they need? And there are 4 basic needs that people have. Number 1 is physical. We have our physical needs. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we all know what they are. So we have the physical needs. We have the need for satisfaction, or the need for significance. We want to mean something to somebody. We have the need for love. And then we have the need to belong. So we'll do physical, significance, love, belonging. Here's the really cool thing about sales is you can focus on each of these aspects. Some of the physical needs, and actually I get into it here in a second with this other side of it. Some physical needs can be a sense of security, safety, things like that. I need to get to the grocery store. The grocery store's right here. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that you can focus on physical needs. Need for significance. Sometimes buying a property is simply this. I want this $1 million house because the $500,000 house isn't good enough for me, because I want to be significant with this type thing. And you can capitalize on that with people. You can recognize someone's need for significance and build on that and actually target that to help them purchase a house. And it may not be necessarily what they were looking for, but you can say, look, this house look at the standing you're going to have in this. So, I mean, there's ways to do it. Love. Obviously, if they're close to family, whatever, I mean, there's ways you can approach that. And then this sense of belonging. There's a lot of communities out there that are now creating an actual community. There's one south of me that is brand new, and their goal is literally to create a sense of community within the housing development. So they built a pizza place, they built a little store, they built a little gathering area, and all of this at the entrance so that even people outside the community can have a sense of their community. They want people and create a sense of belonging for people, because we don't have that in our society as much anymore. If you look at houses back in, well, oh, good grief, even 50, 60 years ago, the new houses that were being built had front porches, right? People used to gather and sit out on their front porch and wave at their neighbors as they went by and talk with people, because they had a sense of belonging in their community. Front porches now are the front door, a little slab of concrete, and 2 pillars. People don't gather at the front porch anymore. So they have other places. That's why Starbucks became so stinking popular, because they became the front porch of their community. People could gather there. That's why all these coffee shops are popping up. That's why all these other places are popping up. And if you can get into a community and you have houses that you can capitalize, someone's looking for this sense of belonging, then you can build on that. Here's the 4th one. Dream or wish. This focuses on being best. And not the best necessarily in the world, but being the best I can be, or having the best I can have. This is whenever you can target with your clients. And Kathy, you brought it up. What's your budget, right? Where are we at the top end of your budget and where you want to be? Then you can focus on how they can be the best in their situation and in their place. And you can literally capitalize, look, I'm giving you the best we can get on this, and you can focus on that. If you focus on that, you can help them achieve their dreams. I saw a commercial, and this one kind of cracked me up, because I don't know that this would ever be someone's dream car. But I can't remember the company right now. I just saw it this morning. I believe it was this morning. And they were going through showing the cars that are for sale, but the girl in the commercial was next to a Camaro convertible. And she said, my dream car is a 2011 Camaro. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't know anyone who has a dream car of being a 2011 Camaro. That's what they were talking about, though. That's exactly what that commercial was focused on, is we're going to make your dream of having a good vehicle come true. But this is the best you can get. And you have to approach it in a positive way. Folks, this is the best you can afford. You don't want to do that. That's
My dream car I had, and we got rid of it, and I want to go find one to restore. And my husband's like, oh, I was like, I want my little Sunbird back. It was just a little bitty 2-door Sunbird 5-speed. And I was like,
Yeah.
I want that car. I was like, it didn't have any fancy nothing. It was just, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And he was like, really? You want to go?
Yeah, I want to go that.
Yeah, I do.
I would love to get I had a 72 Nova, Chevy Nova. Wasn't anything special. I bought it in the 80s, so it really wasn't, but I let it go and wish I had it. Here's the 5th one, goals. This is to achieve what we strive for. And I said this a little bit ago, we already know that if someone's reaching out to you, or if you meet someone and they are interested in seeing houses, you have a new client, whatever, you already know in your mind they want to buy a house. That's a given. May not be like today, but they want to buy a house. So you don't have to worry about what they want in that sense. You have to worry about what their situation is. Whenever you can get to this also, and you can say, okay, what are your goals for this house? All of these can line up great questions for you to dig in and get more information. So what drives you, or what's driving you to get into the market to buy a house? What would satisfy you if you got that? What improvement are you looking to make? What sense of significance or what physical needs are you trying to accomplish with this, and what are you trying to hope for? What is your best that you're looking for? What if you could have the perfect house, what would that be for you? Type question. What goals are you hoping to achieve with this? What are you striving to get? Type thing. All of these help line up questions, but they also help you line up focus, which we'll talk about next week. And I like how you phrase that, de-emphasize what's going on. People will. But it's generally that's a defense mechanism because they don't want to be pressured, right? Remember, they say it because of fear. And here's, when you go back to fear and desire, when it comes to sales, people are afraid of making the wrong decision, ultimately. Because that's what it is. I mean, you can break it down. They are afraid that they're going to buy the wrong property, or they're going to make the wrong decision in the purchase. They're going to buy the wrong thing. Fear is they do not want to make a mistake. They don't want to make a bad decision. And you can alleviate that by helping them focus on this. Here's the other side of motivations, because remember, buying is always an emotional experience. Even if you're going to the store to buy groceries. Especially if you go to the store, it's emotional. Holy cow. But every buying decision that we make, it's based on an emotion. And that emotion is generally desire, because we want it. But there's a lot of emotions that play into it. It's always an emotional experience. People buy because they want it, and your job is to make them want to buy it from you. There are 5 emotional triggers. The 5 emotional triggers, the first one, and I went through this a couple weeks ago. The first one is save time. Let's talk about time for a second. We've heard the phrase time is money, right? And I would argue that that is incorrect. Time is much more valuable than money. You cannot get time back. Once you use that time, it's gone. So this is a very limited thing. We can only go forward in time, and the only thing that really matters is right now. Time is actually much more valuable than money, infinitely more valuable than money. Money you can always get. You can always make more money. In fact, I would say there is no shortage of opportunity or no shortage of success in anything out there. There's huge competition, but there's no shortage of success. There's no shortage of the amount of money that you can make to take care of things. That's why time is so important. One of the things I love to train people on is, look, I want to save you time. I want to make this fast and easy. In order for me to do that, and this is why it's so important to become an investigator at the beginning, because the more information you have at the beginning, and as we get into it next week, the more you can frame the offer or the showing or the situation in a way that actually saves you time. And we expel a lot of time trying to get someone to purchase something, especially if we don't understand why it's important for them to purchase it. Because then instead of hitting the target, we're just taking a shotgun approach And we have the target up there, but we hit the target with the shotgun and hope something actually hits in the middle, if that makes sense. Saves time, and focus on understanding how you can actually use your time and your client's time more effectively. Because this, if you are able to do that and demonstrate this, then people will actually be much more inclined to give you their time. What's the realty company? Is it 999 Realty? That they say that they're going to sell your house in, who says they're going to sell, we'll sell your house in 30 days or we'll buy it?
Oh,
Someone, I heard that article.
that's probably like her.
It might be, I don't know. Right? That's what they're focusing on. We're going to save you time. I mean, that's all they're doing. Right? The other one is save money. People always want to save money. Folks, owners just discounted this house, so we're going to save you some money. And then next week I'll show you actually how you can not cut your commission by the way you focus it. But people want to save money. Security. This goes back to the needs that we have, right? The physical needs, stuff like that. Safety, security, all of these things play into emotional triggers. And they trigger, and here's something that's, and this is where you can use this one, where you can focus on fear. If that makes sense. Because you can acknowledge why people want security because they're afraid. Some aspect of fear and security helps cover that. Right? There's a lot of features, house features, stuff like that. Anyways, peace of mind. Or another way of saying it is confidence. People want to feel confident in the decision they're making. I want to have peace of mind with this. I want to know that I'm doing the right thing or getting the best for my situation. All of those aspects of it. So whenever you align these with the hierarchy of needs things and the motivating triggers, you can actually create peace of mind in your clients. And here's the fun one. Control. Who's in control of the purchase?
Ultimately, the buyer.
The buyer. And then here, I talk with salespeople a lot, and just because my sales background is kind of mixed, most currently selling cars, and car salespeople are the worst at this. Because, and here's where they fail. They want control instead of relinquishing control to the buyer because they believe that if I control this, then they'll buy from me, and that's not true. And I train my sales team all the time. Ultimately, it's their decision to buy. You can't control anything other than the activities that you do that lead you to a potential sale. You cannot control any type of outcome. You cannot control whether or not someone's going to buy something. You can influence it, but you want to relinquish that control also. And here's what I do. I'll give a recap, and I don't want to go too far into it, but because we're going to frame it next week. I'll give a recap or frame the situation for the customer. And I'll say, but ultimately, you get to make the decision on this. I want to give you all of the information so that you can make the decision. I believe the decision that you're going to make on this is the right one with us, and this is why. but you're in control of that process. If you approach it with that mindset or with that understanding, that's what they're looking for. This is what they are striving to have and feel that sense of control in what they're doing. And that's what sales is. It's like you said, it's facilitating the process. That's it. I mentioned it in the first one. Sales is not convincing someone to get something they don't want, don't need, or can't afford. It is persuading them to purchase something they already want to purchase. And you're persuading them by focusing on these motivational triggers, the things that people are motivated on, and on the emotional triggers. And all you're doing is then saying, here you go. I laid it out for you, and we'll get into it next week. I laid it out for you. Let's do it. Because you already know they want to get it. And that's one of the things, and it's a great point, is how you word your questions should focus on what it's actually going to do for them. And the only way you know what it's going to do for them is by having all the information to begin with. Being that investigator that digs all that information out.
Just like with Jason.
And that's one of my favorite questions is, so what do you mean by that? What do you mean by a fixer-upper? What do you mean by...
Yeah. How far in
How do you
detail?
visualize it?
Yeah, how do you visualize that? That's a good one. What would that look like to you? And that's where I like going back to this one, because that's where this comes in. You say this, but what do you mean by that? What would that look like? What would be the best option on that? Those are all great questions.
Picked up your-
Next week is, I was just going to say, next week is framing the offer. So everything from the first week comes back into play. And all of this will kind of line up into that. And then we'll talk about closing the sale.